Welcome to the table, folks. We're glad you made it.
Hey, y'all.
Welcome.
Okay, Genesis 10. These are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth are Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these, the coastland peoples spread in their lands, each with his own language, by their clans and their nations. Isn't that interesting? The sons of Ham were Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabtica. The sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went into Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Calah, and Resen between Nineveh and Calah. That is the great city. Egypt fathered Ludum, Adonam, Lebanon, Naphtuhim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, from whom the Philistines came, and Caphtorim. Canaan fathered Sidon, his first, and Heth, and the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. After the clans of the Canaanites dispersed, and the territory of Canaanites extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerar as far as Gaza, and in the direction of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zobim as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham, by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. To Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth, children were born. The sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, Arpachsad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arpachsad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. To Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan fathered Almadad, Sheleph, Hazaramath, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Abimiel, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. The territory in which they lived extended from Mesha in the direction of Sephir to the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nation. These are the clans of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies in their nations, and from these the nations spread abroad on the earth after the flood. I think I should get some kind of a thanks.
You deserve that.
Whew, I didn't lose my breath all the way through.
Well, and it looked like you pronounced them somewhat correctly.
Whoa, man.
But I did pull something away already.
Okay.
As you read through this, we can liken this to us and our little clan starting Jesus worshipers.
Right.
That those out here are the clans.
Right.
And the genealogy of David.
Mm.
Because this fall in. Now,
right.
As they accept their sword, if you will,
right,
and go out discipling, that would be their children.
Yes. See, God's got gives such wisdom, such insight.
Go into all the world, be fruitful, multiply, folks. Come on.
Oh, huh. So genealogies are not most people's favorite part reading the Bible. Jeez, a line just for Dave, right off the get-go. This is from the expository, by the way.
Who wrote that?
It's hard for us to make sense out of a list of names, most of which we know little or nothing about. Yet genealogies were important in the ancient world as a kind of roadmap indicating the connections between people. That's the part that I really enjoy. These connections could reach back through time, as is the case for linear genealogies, such as the one in Genesis 5. In these genealogies, though, there may be some small details introduced about people along the way. The most important links in the chain are the first and the last, who are linked together firmly by descent. So in Genesis 5, the primary focus is on the link between Noah and Seth, highlighting the line through whom the promise would descend. Noah is the heir of that great promise, not just a random righteous person selected by God for salvation. That's the interesting part. New Destiny's been reading through the Bible for 2 years now. And I listen to, Genesis is one of my favorite books to listen to go to sleep. Don't ask me why. I don't know, but it
Well, because it's genealogy and it's boring and it's real good to go to sleep on.
There's all kinds of stories in Genesis.
Yeah, I know. There's some really good stories in Genesis.
But watching the line descend, the promise is coming. Clear back here, when you look at a timeline, and it's way back here, thousands of years, and then how you can trace through the genealogy, where they've been, what they've done, who they become. Even the ones that said, not me, Lord. He's like, yep, you.
Yeah.
Like that. I love that. Not just random righteous person, but selected by God for salvation. Segmented genealogies, like the one in Genesis 10, serve to group and distinguish families horizontally, though there's often a vertical element as well. This is the kind of genealogy one uses to decide whom to invite to a family reunion. Generally, someone does not reach out to everyone in the world who happens to share their last name. Rather, such a person might go back a generation or two and then forward and sideways to invite all his cousins. The further back one goes, the larger the reunion, with more people being counted as family. At the same time, other individuals will be excluded from that particular definition of the family, being included in someone else's family instead. In this way, Genesis 10 locates Israel among the 70 nations that are identified at this point in history. 70 nations. That's kind of what we went through. I bet if we count all those names, and I didn't, I bet each one of them represents a nation. Other nations also descended from Shem, a relatively close family to the descendants of Abraham, even though not Israelites themselves. Meanwhile, others are less close relatives, descended from Japheth or Ham. With them, Israel has less to do. The listing of the origins of nations reverberates elsewhere in Old Testament, and history plays itself out, showing that God has planned out everything from the earliest days of his world. And I love seeing that part. I love the story. I love the history part. And the genealogies are just a really good thing. My husband, not so much, on the other hand. So, there's that. Verses 1 through 5 begins a new section. These are the generations of. In this case, it outlines the family history of Noah's son, the various lines that come from Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Since there are only 8 people on the ark, Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and their respective wives. The genealogy does not begin with Shem, even though he is the oldest, as the line of promise. His line is held back so that it can lead into the story of Abraham. Instead, the genealogy starts with Japheth, who's the second son. I always thought that, why didn't you start at the first one and go through? But it's not how it works. As a segmented genealogy, its purpose is to express relative kinship between nations and peoples and to define who is not far from the kingdom of God, in contrast to those who are more distant from God. Of the 7 sons and 7 grandsons of Japheth, it is possible to identify many of these people groups from other ancient sources. Gomer represents the warlike Jemari, who originated in the Crimea. Magog is similarly in the othermost parts of the north in Ezekiel 38:6, which need not refer to anywhere further north than the nations surrounding it. The Madai are most familiar to most Bible readers as the Medes. Javan represents the Ionian Greeks and later became a term of more genealogy for the inhabitants of Greece. Tubal and Meshach referred to Tabal and Mushku, peoples of central and eastern Anatolia. See, and here we get to talking about stuff that I don't understand all of the maps and where they're at. So after Japheth's sons come the sons of Noah's youngest son, Ham.
So the thing that I like even less than genealogy
Is the locations.
is geography.
Right? Geography. Thank you. That was the word. Missing that tonight.
It's fine.
These are focused in a wide sweep to the south and west of the Mediterranean. 4 sons are attributed to Ham. Cush, who has Upper Egypt. Egypt, more precisely Lower Egypt. Put has Libya and Canaan, who was introduced in the previous chapter. Links between Egypt and the Canaanite cities prior to Israel's conquest are well attested. So clear back, I think that's the other part, is these descendants of Noah, his sons, established the nations. And we know that right off the get-go, it doesn't take very long, and they're at war with each other. The nations war. Pretty soon, and they all come from the same family. They all have the same.
But, and I guess we don't war, but we have arguments with family members.
Oh, yeah, because we're all individuals,
We're all individuals.
right?
So most of the time, that don't mean we want to kill them. I wouldn't go to war against Jan's family or Barb's family.
Right,
I wouldn't have my kids go to war against their families.
right.
I mean, everybody does something that I don't agree with.
Well, and I'm sure that's that way in our directed at us as well.
Yeah.
We've done some pretty wild stuff in our day.
And that's what I'm saying. Even me and you don't agree on everything.
I love genealogy and you don't, and I don't
Exactly.
understand.
You're weird.
I married you. That's how that comment usually goes.
Yes, you're weird. I'm just trying to point out that you can really, really not like somebody but still love them.
Yeah.
There's not one of my family members that I would not die for. Of course, I've moved to a point that there's not one of the people who come on here that I probably wouldn't die for, as well as some that maybe I don't even know. That's just who I'm becoming. But, yeah.
It's amazing how the potter shapes the clay. So, I jumped forward here and I didn't need to. In the middle of the passage, there's a focus that shifts to Nimrod. I know we've all heard about him. Who is assigned the parentage of many of Israel's later enemies in Mesopotamia, especially Assyria and Babylon. It's not coincidental that the chief opponents of the line of promise are found among the descendants of Ham, the cursed youngest child of Noah. So remember, there's a curse that's been spoken here. Nimrod is unusual in the entire list in that his importance is as an individual rather than as a people group. Though he founds a number of key cities, he also uniquely receives a brief biographical sketch describing characteristics that he is undoubtedly assumed to pass on to the cities that he founds. Nimrod is described as a mighty man, that is, a warrior and a mighty hunter. These two images immediately conjure up visions of the portrayals of Assyrian kings and gods and their monumental beliefs. Both kings and gods are portrayed as hunting lions and bulls as well as engaged in warfare. So Nimrod certainly epitomizes the later Assyrian and Babylon image of masculine power. Whether Nimrod can be identified with a known figure from Babylonian history, either human or divine, is much more uncertain. His attributes were not restricted to any one individual, but were widespread throughout the society. In this, he resembles the men of renown in Genesis 6:4. Hardly a positive comparison. So, I'm not sure what all of Nimrod's story is, and I'm not going to get into that particular part of that y'all can check it out. But there's more references to Nimrod in there. And
Nimrod
lastly,
has always been like a slam.
it's been a slam, but biblically he's
Nimrod.
referred to as a mighty warrior.
And that leaves me with that curiosity is why do we use it as a slam,
Right?
an insult?
There's
I was
a
going
question.
to ask the same question.
Yeah.
My dad, growing up, we all had nicknames. Tyson was Wingnut, I was Nimrod, and Colin was something else that I can't say on here. But my dad used to call me Nimrod all the time growing up, and I took it as an insult until today. But he used to call me Nimrod a lot, and I thought it was a bad thing.
Right? Well, and like David's saying, it's been used as
A negative
as a
condemnation.
negative thing, yeah. We may have to do a deeper dive off into Nimrod later.
Maybe a Friday night thing we do.
Maybe.
But first, we do need to get into names.
Yeah.
The
something-
next series comes up will be
What's in a name?
what's in the name? Is that what it was called?
I think so.
I want to run that one next.
Yeah. So lastly, we come to the line of promise, the descendants of Shem. This is why his genealogy has been saved until last, even though he's the firstborn. Shem is described as the father of all those descended from Eber. There is an obvious connection between the name of Eber and the people group, the Hebrews. The term outsiders typically used to identify Israelites. So I think the term Hebrew was, again, a slang thing. The Jews, they were the Israelites. In Genesis 10, however, Eber is the father of many more descendants than simply Israelites, and the term Hebrew may originally have denoted a wider referent than merely the Israelites. The word Eber can mean region beyond, especially in terms of rivers. Let's see. Attempts have been made to connect the title Hebrew with the Habara, the wandering group of rebels and mercenaries who appear in various ancient Near Eastern sources throughout the second millennium. But these attempts have not been compelling. Unlike the genealogies of Japheth and Ham, which are wide but no more than a couple generations deep, the genealogy of Shem traces multiple generations, of necessity, incompletely. Shem's 5 sons are the foundation for the family, including well-known people such as the Elamites, the Assyrians, the Arameans, and later narratives indicate particularly close relationship between Abraham's family and certain Arameans, even though they're not especially close in the genealogy. Arpachshad, now I can't even say it, is the son of Shem, through whom the promise will descend. In spite of his curiously non-Hebrew sounding name, the latter part of the name may be linked to the Chaldeans, who occupied part of Babylon and came to dominate it in the days of Nabopolassar, father of Nebuchadnezzar. Whew. In the context of the genealogy, his role is simply to father Shelah, who fathers Eber, who is himself the father of Peleg. Unusually for a person forming a link in the chain of a linear genealogy, Peleg is given a biographical note that, like his earlier description of Nimrod, anticipates the Tower of Babel.
Mine's got a little note down here, notation. Peleg means division.
Ooh. And yeah, from him is where the Babylonians are going to come in the Tower of Babel. Oof. So, as a line of promise, Peleg's line will not be picked up until later, after the Tower of Babel. Instead, the present genealogy focuses on the non-elect line through Joktan. The descendants of Joktan, where they can be identified, belong to southwest Arabia, an unexpected place to find Semitic connections. The extensive listings of sons may represent unidentifiable places and people groups. It highlights the importance of Joktan as the generation in which there is a decisive parting of the ways. These are Israel's separated kinsmen, but the emphasis is more on separated than on kinsmen. And have been his faith in Christ, not simply those who come from him physically. This
You may
fundamental.
not. Now we're back up and going.
My phone may have blipped out for a minute there. I'm sorry, folks. This fundamental division in humanity, ultimately into those who have faith in Christ and those who do not, is alluded to in the reference to the division in the time of Peleg, a division that comes to the fore in the Tower of Babel narrative. There, the city founded by Nimrod demonstrates its penchant for false worship. Babel's worship seeks to create an artificial unity based on human religiosity without regard to the true God. A worship that elevates man and seeks to make a name for itself rather than humbly seeking God and glorifying his name. The quest for blessing by that path is inevitably fruitless, since only the true God has the power to bless his people. Another real quick down and dirty for 6 pages of genealogy.
But I still don't know any more than I knew when I got here, other than, or
I think it's going to be more important as it's laying the foundation as we're going to trace through here.
no, and I get that,
Genesis.
but it's also looking at that piece of this puzzle, to where Pastor's been on me that it's time to break loose and build that next. Be fruitful and multiply.
Right. But, and like it says there, you know, all these descendants and everybody goes and forms their own belief system, what they believe and who they're going to worship or what they're going to worship.
It's largely how we are right now, though.
Exactly. And that's what I started to say. That
most of us lean towards a Jesus.
Right.
Not all of us, but most of us have a Jesus that we follow.
Right.
Not necessarily the Jesus. And that's where, for me, knowing the Bible, when I say stuff like that, I hear that scripture, "Depart from me, you worker of iniquity, I never knew you."
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't know Jesus, we can't determine which one is the proper Jesus. Most religions acknowledge Jesus.
Right. Some say he was a prophet.
He's
Yeah.
pretty spectacular all the way. He's a good teacher, a prophet. He's pretty spectacular all the way across.
Right.
But it's coming to know him as the creator that, I don't want to say elevates us, but it's the difference between everybody else says, yeah, he's a good teacher and he's one of the ways.
Right.
And I'm stealing this, by the way. Jesus is the only one that said, not only am I a good teacher, but I am the way.
I am the way. Yeah.
The way. Not a way, the way.
Well, and I think had a couple conversations this weekend, and like we've said all along, know about Jesus, know that they're, well, hello, Miss Emmeline.
Hello, Emily.
Know that.
Thank you. I was having to get
Yes,
my glasses
there's
out to try to
Jesus.
read that.
And I will call on you when I need you. But unless I don't need you, please don't bother me.
But see, they don't know the real Jesus.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's where this, as we've come through the last few years, that's where the transformation in my brain finally kicked into gear. Is he is the way, the truth, and the life. That's it. Anything else is false. Anything else is not the original. Everything else is counterfeit.
Yes. And thereby corrupt.
And the only way to know, and there's the double-edged piece. You can have all kinds of knowledge and still not know him.
Yes. I think that's a lot of where overall we struggle today. We let that lack of knowledge refrain us from reaching out and getting to know Jesus, because you don't know Jesus till you start walking in his ways. When you start walking in his way and start being obedient to what he's told us, then he begins to, that's what puts life in him. Otherwise, he's a fictional character in a book.
Right.
But when you start to walk his paths, when you become a disciple, he starts exposing himself to you. And he's no longer a fictional character in a book, but he's actually somebody that you stop and you talk to. And you consult. Sometimes you just need to be a whiner and whine at him.
And he's okay with that.
I wouldn't go as far as say he's okay with that. He will listen to it. He will not reprimand you for it. But I don't see him as a whole lot different than a regular dad and being like, really, this again?
Right.
We've talked.
Right.
I've showed you things. And now here we are again. How many times am I going to have to... I see that out of Jesus.
Right.